So when you get into DJing and you nail that first transition, it feels amazing, right? And you do it over and over again, but eventually it might start to get repetitive and maybe even boring. I'm talking about just your simple standard transition that sounds something like this. Sounds amazing, right? But like I said, over and over again, it might start to get a little bit boring. So let's level up your skills with some new techniques. The first technique is called a drop swap. What we're going to do is we're going to trigger two tracks at the very same time. What's going to happen is the crowd are going to think they're going to expect and hear one drop, and we're going to switch it into a different one, and we're going to use the crossfader to keep the transition engaging and exciting. So the first thing we need to do is, this works really well on tracks that are obviously BPM'd and matched up, but also if they are in the same key. So we can either use two tracks that are in the same key, or we can just go into a software like Recordbox, hit key sync, and that will be just fine. So how do we know when to trigger our incoming track? What we need to do is we need to set a marker at a certain point. What I like to do is set a marker 32 beats before the drop. That way I can visually see when to trigger my track. So we go to the drop. So that is what the crowd are expecting to come in. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the drop. We're going to go and open up our beat jump function. You can use this in any software. Go beat jump and then go 32 beats back. And then we've got a trigger point here. So that is 32 beats before. Then with a little bit of planning, we go to our next track. We find the drop. So there's the drop. What we're going to do is open up our beat jump function, or you can do it on your controller. And we're just going to go 32 beats back. We're going to set a cue point. I'll set it at the same color for reference. So these green cue points are now 32 beats apart. So if we trigger them at the same time with the same BPM, they should drop at the exact same time, ready for this technique. One final thing to do is just make sure that our crossfader is activated. So we've got it on A, this side for this track, and B for deck B, and we're gonna split using the crossfader on the drop. So as this track is playing, all we need to do is make note of when our green cue point is coming in, and then we trigger the green cue point on the right-hand side on deck number 2. So as this track is coming in, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. We're going to slowly bring up the fader. Four, 3, 2, 1, drop. And then we can either get rid of it or leave it in for the full duration of the transition. The only thing we need to remember is we need to count in 4s to make sure that we're triggering. We're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to get a nice pattern going. Then it's up to you whether you leave the transition going or whether you just come into your next track. So let's try that one more time. So we're approaching our cue point. 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Keep it in time. So we're going to count in 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that technique is commonly known as the drop swap. This next transition technique allows us to switch between big variations in BPM. So if you're an open format DJ, this one's for you. We're also going to be utilizing sync. So if you're stuck in 2007 and you're still bothered about whether you're using sync or not, move on to the next transition. This is not for you, but for those creative DJs out there who want to learn, stick around. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to need a wide tempo range. So on the controller here, you can see it says tempo range, and we're going to change this to wide because we're going to need a big change in BPM variation. So if I hit shift on this Flex 10, go to my tempo range, and now we can see we are at a wide tempo range, which gives me the most flexibility and the biggest variance in BPM on my tempo fader. The next thing we're going to do is hit that beat sync function. Then what I like to do for this technique is find an isolated vocal section. So on this pauser track, I've found this little section here.
Catch me in them streets with my blue khakis on, in my Chuck Taylor, smoking blunts with my crew. Gangsta walk, hey, hey. Gangsta walk, hey, hey. Gangsta walk, hey, hey. Gangsta, 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 gangsta.
So I like that little vocal section there. Then to add a little bit of flair to this trick, I'm gonna select the trans effect on my controller. It's gonna give us this kind of sound. Then all we do is simply trigger our incoming track and then increase the tempo fader to the drum and bass track, which is coming in next. Then all we need to do is a little bit of prep with our cue points on our incoming track. So I've got a cue point just on the intro of this drum and bass track. And then I've got one. Hello, I got places to be. Hello, I got places to. Just 4 beats before the drop. Hello, I got places to be. So we're going to trigger that as we transition into this next track. So as we're looping, we're going to increase our wide tempo fader. We're going to bring in the drums and then drop into the drum and bass track. So it should sound like this. We've got both our BPM synced. So I've dropped the BPM down of the drum and bass track to the house track of 130. So as this track is transitioning,
here's what I want you to do. Come a little closer, let me see that down. Let me slide this number to you. You can catch me in them streets with my blue khakis on, in my Chuck Taylor, smoking blunts with my crew. Gangsta, 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 gangsta.
So we start to increase the tempo. Up to 174. Hit the trans. We can play with the parameters. Hello, 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 I got places to be. And then we drop into our drum and bass track. So any DJs that are playing wide BPM ranges from 130 to 174, it'll work with anything. If you're using hip hop and you're going to house, you're going from house to hip hop, you're going from trap to drum and bass, this technique can really help you out. This next transition is taken from some old school battle DJ technique, and it's called wordplay. And wordplay is a nice little technique where you can incorporate some words from one track going into another track. It's been used in DJing for years and years and years, but not much on the electronic scene. So let's apply this to some house tracks. So I've got some a cappella here on this well-known track, Exceder.
1, 2, 3, 4, let me hear you scream if you want some more.
So when I'm ever teaching or trying to talk to somebody about wordplay, the first question is like, how do I find them? How do I know what words to go with what? So all it involves is listening to the track, right? So if I play this a cappella.
1, 2, 3, 4, let me hear you scream if you want some more. Like, push it, watch me work it. I'm perfect.
So all I do is listen to the words in the track. So you've got either
push it,
push it,
me work it, push it, watch me work it. I'm perfect.
Watch me work it. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then all I do literally is go into my library and type in some words and see if any track come up. So that's what I did. So I've got this.
Watch me work it. I'm perfect.
Work it. And then I found some tracks that's got work it, the word work it in it. I found this track, which is a Missy Elliott bootleg.
Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, I flip it and reverse it. It's your primitive and fine yet.
So then it's like, how do we put this together? So we've got 2 cue points set up. I've got one just on the intro, 132 beats before the drop. So as we're transitioning from the end of this track, so I'm mixing in this track. BPMs are matched up, and now we're going to start to use our hot cues.
work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it.
It's all about timings with your hot cues, and you can do it simply by going on the number 1 beat. You can incorporate some patterns like I did there.
Watch me work it, work it, work it. Watch me work it, work it, work it. Watch me work it, work it, work it.
And by practicing with no music or just practicing to a drum beat, you can get some interesting patterns. So if you nail the drum pattern first with just a beat,
watch me work it, work it, work it. Watch me work it, work it, work it. Watch me work it, work it, work it.
you can really start to trigger your brain and your muscle memory into some really cool patterns. And then it's all about putting it into practice. So I'm remembering that drum pattern from before, that hot cue play. Start to mix our tracks in. And it's one of those techniques that if you do that in a DJ booth surrounded by other DJs, they're going to give you that little nod of approval because they know exactly what you've just done. If you're enjoying these transition techniques, I've left a free DJ lesson in this video, in the description and in the comments to a free lesson from our Transitions DJ course. Just go to wearecrossfader.co.uk if you want to learn more, or click the link for your free lesson. This next tip involves using an underrated feature on any controller or DJ software, which is key shift. So basically, we're just going to go up in semitones of pitch to create some tension and create some atmosphere and some difference, some energy to a pretty standard looping technique. So we've got our loop set up. We've got
I wanna take my clothes off. I wanna take my clothes off.
I've got an active loop set up there. We've got this track here, which is Dog Days.
I wanna make the lady say. Make the lady say.
We've got this loop, and then we are going to put some cue points on the incoming track, which is Miracle Maker. I've got it on the drop, on the 1, and then I've got it 4 beats before. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got our BPMs matched up. As this track is incoming, I'm going to open up this key shift, and all the key shift's going to do is this key shift. It's going to give us that little rising motion before we can drop into this next track. So we're going to use 2 loops. We're going to use a 4-beat loop.
I want to take my clothes
We're going to exit and use a 1-beat loop.
I want to take my clothes off.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to let the track build up. Hit the 4-beat loop. Trigger our cue point. Open up key shift. 1-beat loop. Begin to increase the pitch. So that's the premise of it, and we're going to add a little bit of echo into the end of it just to spice up the transition a little bit more. So as we're building up, put the lows, open up key shift. We're going to go to a 1-beat loop. Increase the echo. So right at the end there, what I did was open up the key shift. I went back to the original key and then just triggered the active loop, which we had already saved in the controller. So a very advanced technique with a lot going on, but you can see the impact it can have, and it can just spice up your DJ sets from them boring standard transitions. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you want some more transition techniques, make sure you check this video out right here.